Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. A little chilly this morning, but it is supposed to warm up over the next few days, possibly 70 or more in the next day or two. So the weather's warming up again for February. It's a little crazy. For those of you on my locals channel, I did not get a live stream in last night. Was getting ready, actually just kind of prepping and getting ready for the live stream, and got toned out to a wildland fire call. So kind of was busy with that. It wasn't a terribly big one. It was bordering the national forest, and getting to it and working it was what was really a pain. It was just on the side of a hill cliff, but we got it done. Just as we were getting it kind of wrapped up, the Forest Service firefighters got there, and they kind of took care of the rest of it. We got most of it put out though by the time they got there. No knock to them. I'm not putting them down at all. There's some good guys, and they know what they're doing. But was busy with that until dark last night, so that's why I didn't get that going. A lot of stuff in the news in the Middle East again. Those Houthis they're still going at it. They struck a cargo ship. Looks like the cargo ship had to be abandoned because it had taken so much fire. And apparently they shot down one of our Reaper drones. So things aren't, just because you're not hearing about it every day, you know, everyone's attention has been diverted to other things. That is still going on. BRICS is also making statements that they predict the US dollar will fail. Not that that's probably a big surprise to most of you, but that the US dollar will fail. And there was an article just a couple of days ago stating that it wasn't foreign entities that was going to cause the US dollar to fail, but the United States itself, due to the piling on of debt in insane amounts. 34 trillion, $34.5 trillion. I mean, we're going into debt $1 trillion a quarter now. Approximately, and that's expected. That rate of debt increase is expected to go up. So that's not good news for us, folks. You probably should start looking into your finances, your investments, your retirements. I'm not the advisor for that, okay? But I can tell you that you need to start looking into it. There's things for your investments that you can roll stuff into gold. And there's just other ways to somewhat protect. I don't really think that there's any way to completely protect yourself from this. If the U.S. dollar collapses or starts very much hyperinflating, which it kind of is on the edge of that right now, even though the experts will tell you different, there's not really a way to completely protect yourself against that. But you might be able to protect against some things. For myself, we look at mostly just hard assets, tangible physical things, land, gold, silver, bullets, food. That may not be the best investment for some people, but we are not dealing with massive amounts of money, so that's where we put most of our investments in. The big news that may be going around in at least some circles is the trucker strike that is being talked about. It's not necessarily a strike. They're just saying that they're refusing to take deliveries into New York. Now, this is due to New York ruling that Donald Trump, former president, owes the state of New York $355 million, something like that, and with fees and payments and debt and all this other stuff, that number is actually somewhere over $400 million. Without getting into that case, because honestly I haven't followed it in detail, the truckers are saying that they're not going to be delivering into New York, and there's a lot of people talking about how this is going to cause New York to just potentially collapse, turn into some zombie wasteland, predictions of starvation and violent crime increases. Well, they've already had violent crime increases. It's already a zombie land. My, not really predictions, but what I kind of think is going to happen is probably not a whole lot. It will be probably barely noticeable. And the reason for that is that I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. But the reason for that is that the vast majority of the truckers nowadays, they work for companies. They're not independent operators. especially ones in that area. I mean, there are certainly a lot of independent operators, but the majority aren't. And then there's a lot of foreign operators, foreign um, uh, migrants that work in trucking, and it's possible that they would not participate in this. Um, and so when you bring it down to it, I've seen numbers of 10% or less of truckers that would be going into to New York would be the ones that might be participating in this. And then when you add to that of recent news, and I say recent, in the last 6 months or maybe even longer, um, of truckers just not having enough work. They're not getting enough loads, they're not getting enough work. Work has slowed down. And so if you took 10% or so of the truckers out of the equation, all it would seem to do is probably just increase the workload for truckers that aren't getting enough work to begin with. So I hate to sound like I'm kind of downplaying what this. I'm not against the principle of this. I'm just saying that I don't really think it's going to be that noticeable. Now, I could be wrong. It could cause some kind of cascading effect. It could cause, massive disruptions all along the East Coast, especially in New York. But I kind of think that it's probably not. So I wouldn't, for those of you that are on the side of hoping that it will happen, I wouldn't get your hopes up too much. Time will tell. It's supposed to start today. Where truckers are saying that they're not going to be delivering into New York. And I did see something about some shipping companies saying that, but it wasn't a very good source, so it's possibly that's not true at all. But that's what's happening with that. Supply chain issues are a problem. And in the whole political realm, especially with what's going on with Trump, when you combine the two, certainly things could happen. Certainly, it could cause a disruption. I just, my gut tells me it's not going to happen. We've seen over the last couple of years predictions and rallying of whether it's truckers or other industries to try to do some type of protest to disrupt the system, and it's either not panned out or it's not been enough to be noticeable. And so I think personally this is going to be another one of those that it's probably not going to be that noticeable. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't prepare, because that's something we should just always be doing. We never know which one of these things that go on that we hear about, and we hear that they're going to be the next big, collapsing, thing that's going to cause everything to just tip over. It's that final straw. And most of the time it's not the final straw, but at some point it could be the final straw. And so that's why we should always be at the ready. It's tiresome, isn't it? It's tiresome to constantly hear that this next big thing is going to destroy us. This next date is going to be the date that it all comes to a head. Right now a lot of people are talking about the coming eclipse, and that it's the thing that's going to cause everything to collapse. And there's some very interesting information coming out about that. I've read some of it. Where, for instance, I'm not going to go into great detail on this, but how the eclipse will follow nearly every city in the United States called Nineveh. It will pass over most of them. And Nineveh is the city that, God sent Jonah to because it had turned its back on God. So that's interesting. But is that a conclusive evidence that this is the beginning of the end with this eclipse? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that believe it. I don't disbelieve it. I just, we've had so many other things in the past months and years that could be that one thing, and it's not. So how do we deal with that tiring effect and just kind of wearing us down? For me, I don't worry about these things. I don't worry about the next big thing that could happen that could cause us all to fall apart. For me, I'm just trying to live in a state of readiness all the time. We're regularly going over our preparations, regularly making plans to increase our self-sufficiency, because it's a lifestyle. It's not something that we're doing just because the next thing might be the one to break us. Because if that's the only reason that you're doing it for, when it doesn't happen, you kind of start to lose hope, lose interest, and lose steam. And so I would strongly recommend to not be doing your preparations or find your motivation just solely in some event that's being talked about that may or may not happen. I would personally just find motivation in just being self-sufficient and generally prepared for anything. And that's how we are. I'm not preparing for any particular event. There's a lot of preppers say that. Oh, I'm preparing for an EMP or for a nuclear attack or blah blah blah. The next pandemic. For us, we're just becoming more self-sufficient, more prepared, and we're doing that as individuals, as a family, and we're trying to do that in a community. And in doing so, we hope that we are ready for anything that might happen, whether it is a disruption of the supply chain or some, EMP nuclear attack or just an unpredicted ice storm or a flood or a tornado. And if we live that way to where we're not so hyper dependent upon all of the system around us, then when things do happen that are bad, we're ready for it. We're able to handle it. And so really that's probably the better way to live. It also prevents this draining, this fatigue of, well, I'm getting myself emotionally hyped up for something and then it doesn't happen and then I have this letdown and then I have to re-energize myself again. I personally just don't worry about those things that they predict will happen, and most times they don't. I often wonder if sometimes those are some of the psyops to get us in that state of fatigue to where we no longer really pay attention to what's going on and we just try to reinsert ourselves as another worker drone. So my advice is to just start being prepared and self-sufficient because it's the right thing to do. And it builds confidence and independence, spirit, and to where you're not being tethered to the system and not necessarily because of one particular event. Time will tell. Over the next several days, we'll see whether or not this trucker thing will pan out. But it's very likely that it will be just like many others, that it will probably happen on a small scale, but not large enough to make a lot of difference. Regardless, we need to be getting ourselves ready, getting our houses in order, preparing ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.